Ladies and gentlemen, this is internet personality Vangelus, and thanks to Big Bad Toy Store, it's time for some hot and heavy Toyworld action once again with Hardbone, the first in their line of hard master transforming robots. H-Bone is an H-Tank, green and black and chunky and proud. The sculpt is pretty simple with a lot of flat surfaces and properly chiseled tread work. There are several wheels underneath, 4 small and 2 friggin' large. The main cannon can pivot around, and the 2 auxiliary guns have a few spots in which they can be plugged. Also, the lit tip of the turret can slide onto any available gun barrel. This is some decent vehicle play pattern which elevates surprisingly well when you shift the treads into a sort of all-terrain raised firing position kind of deal. I appreciate the extra half mile this guy runs to make sure the tank is something more than a flat shape he assumes when he's not a robot. Slipping out of a slightly cramped but nicely sculpted driver's seat, the little Hardbone has the super cool quality of having color work that makes him look like a literal interpretation of his final robot mode. And hey, he's got ball joints at his shoulders, hips, and knees. He's headmaster small and decently posable, so things are looking good. Then you turn him around and realize he's a decent little robot with a giant, unsubtle face pod splorged all over his back. I am really unimpressed with the complete non-attempt at hiding the face, and mildly disappointed at how much this backpack unbalances the little dude. Toyworld have got a lot of room for improvement as far as tiny robots that turn into heads are concerned. Hardbone's transformation also has room for improvement above the waist. Below the waist, things are goddamn interesting. The leg transformation is inspired, with treads opening to reveal hidden limb parts, and then folding up to cleanly close the newly emptied chasms. The feet go out of their way to do more than simply flip out. The hips, pelvis, and butt skirt go out of their way to compress as interestingly as possible. The waist even slides forward to even out the midriff aesthetic. What joys await us up top? Total pragmatic boredom, that's what. The hands just flip out, the arm just extends, failing to even click solidly in place, and the shoulder treads just sit there, hugely not living up to the interesting process their southward brothers engaged in. It's not a poor process, just friggin' boring compared to what was going on down below. Little Hardbone is the biggest transforming disappointment though, curling into a ball and not locking together in any way, shape, or form! At least he plugs in super solidly. Regardless of how he got there, Hardbone's robot mode is a delicious balance of chunk and hero proportions. He's like Headmasters if Headmasters happened in 2005 or 2006, with Galaxy Force beef cakery filling out his mechanical military muscle. The color scheme is also pretty cool, though it also takes colossal liberties with the G1 hardhead character it's intended to emulate. Hell, the mimicry of the classic Headmaster chest flap also takes its own turn, revealing an albeit badass internal engine, rather than a bunch of onboard tech specs. The real beauty of Hardbone comes in the form of how much straight-up play pattern he contains in his personal armory. The main tank cannon has moved to his shoulder, still pivoting around freely, and able to use a sliding rear block to connect his other 2 guns to the assembly. The slide is a really nice touch that makes room for the firearm's peg handles. Those smaller guns can also be held classically in a fist hole, or less classically, mounted on Hardbone's forearms. They can also store on the sides of his legs, all casual holstered and whatnot. You can also plug the main cannon into any of these holes, which makes for a decent number of display options. The real fun begins when you pop open Hardbone's leg pods, revealing 2 new accessories. The combat knife is hardcore and goddamn metal. You know, like the music, not the actual material, it's made of plastic. Aside from wielding it in the manner of a gentleman getting ready to slit or shank a mother, Hardbone can also plug the knife into either of his green guns as a bayonet with the blade either up or down. The other new piece can be used as a scope for the main gun or a weird barrel extension for any of the 3 firearms, but really its true majesty is the way it can be held as a retro tech stick grenade. I don't know what possessed Hardbone to make a futuristic version of the Model 24 Stielhandgranate, but I pat him on the shoulder for it firmly, and nod my head. Hardbone's final weapon also somewhat pardons his rather boring shoulder treads. They can flip around to reveal Macross missile spam! At least that's how I'm interpreting him. The sculpt is translucent and unpainted, so I guess you could also pretend they're searchlights, or thrusters, or tennis ball cannons, or whatever. So this guy's got a weird mix of things when it comes to joints, and those things are ratcheting and non-ratcheting. Now his head can swivel left and right, and when you do that, we get to see something I'm going to talk about in just a sec. But the swivel joint for his neck is a ratchet joint. And that's cool. And the problem I had with his head transformation really manifests here as none of this is stuck together, and it's real easy for his head to just go all splayed out and sloppy looking when you're trying to pose it. I wish something clicked together here, because the super solid neck ratchet joint is great. His shoulders have got an array of joints. Now there's non-ratcheting joints that work like this. And if I had one problem with some of the non-ratcheting joints on this guy, it's that they can be a little bit loose and a little bit hinky. But then there's a ratcheting joint here as well, which can help out with some other forms of posability. Because this ratchet, like this tilt is before the swivel, and this tilt is after the swivel. So there's a lot of joints in the shoulder, and it's just that one of them is way more solid than the others, and I wish they were all kind of like that ratcheting action. Because he's got ratcheting action in his elbow, too. His bicep swivel isn't ratcheting, and it also is kind of loose. And, you know, there's no click out here, so this thing likes to do that while you're trying to pose him. His wrists can swivel, and they also feel just kind of loose. His waist has a soft detent ratchet, and it sure doesn't feel loose. And I mean, we're starting to hopefully see the dichotomy here. We've got kind of loose non-ratcheting joints and really solid ratcheting joints, and it makes for an odd, kind of shaky experience. His hips ratchet forward and back, and they ratchet outwards. Those are solid. His thigh swivels are down here at the very bottom of the thigh. These are the tightest non-ratcheting joints on Hardbone. They feel good. The knee joint is a soft detent. It doesn't bend super deep because it kind of bumps into the tread work back here. I guess if you get that out of the way like that, then you could bend this a bit tighter, but you'd have a big panel sticking up against his butt, I suppose. His butt plate, by the way, also has a bit of a lack of... Like, it goes together like this, but there's nothing clipping it together, so it can also get bumped out of the way when you're playing with him. His feet have got a really neat kind of fusion ankle tilt, because there are two components. So this back part can do that, and this front part can do that. You can also bend it like that from the transformation. And this back part, now his feet can fold up like this, but then he's kind of leaning backwards, I find, when he's standing. Like, there's kind of just a slant. And see, I prefer to actually fold these down a bit so that the wheels are on the floor. Now that has two effects. Number one, it means that he has a bit more of a proper orientation in his regular standing stance, and the other one is he has wheels on his heels, so he can just start, you know, grinding on floors and stuff, or jumping on whatever. Like, you know, those shoes with the wheels on the bottom that all the kids like with their Razor scooters and their punk rock music. Anyway, Hardbone's posability, it's not bad, but the plastic tolerances of the non-ratcheting joints leave a bit to be desired. And this nonsense with the head is so dumb. Like, look at this thing. It's like a bad hair day, except his hair is made of legs and arms, and I don't like to talk to people whose hair is made of legs and arms. Maybe I'm kind of racist. Hardbone's the first Toyworld master of headology, and he's pretty fun. But he also walks right down the middle of the road. I like the chunk and love the huge matrix of his weaponry play pattern. His lower half is fun as hell to transform too, but the boring and imprecise arm transformation, massively disappointing head robo buddy, and the rickety nature of his non-ratcheting joints all knock a few points off his scorecard. And when he clocks in at around 80 to 100 bucks, those are all things that may be off-putting to potential purchasers. Hardbone feels like a great off-the-shelf transforming robot, but if you want finesse over fun in your third-party mecha, he may leave you feeling a little limp. Anyway, this has been Internet Personality Vangelus, and I hope this video has helped you consider the rigidity of your resolve in regards to the headman called Hardbone. I also hope you've washed your mental mouth out with soap, because you all know you've been total children about this poor guy's name. Children!